you like the content on my channel, you've probably already heard that Amtrak tickets are now on sale for nonstop Acela Express New York City to Washington service starting the 23rd of September 2019. That's New York City to Washington, no stops, and Washington, D.C. back to New York, no stops. They claim it will take about 2 hours and 35 minutes. They also claim that it's going to cost the same price. And I have a good feeling that this is probably specifically targeting businessmen and businesswomen as well as politicians. So what's the best way to test this thing out and see what it really does time-wise? Throw it into the simulator and see what happens. We have an Acela Express here at 7 a.m. in the summer, and the reason I chose a 7 a.m. service is because I happened to be browsing the internet and found an article by the Points Guy of a group of coworkers racing from New York City to DC. In fact, that's the name of the title of the article. So they used 5 different ways to get from Central Park in New York City to the White House in Washington, D.C. It was held Monday, May 13th, using a 7 a.m. Acela Express ridden by Danielle, a 7:05 Amtrak Northeast Regional ridden by Zach, an 8 a.m. American Airlines shuttle from LaGuardia to Reagan National, and that was Scott, a 7:59 a.m. Delta shuttle on the same route, and that was Jessica, and a 7 a.m. Megabus, and that was Brendan. So they all raced to Washington, D.C. and decided to try and figure out which one was going to be the fastest. And well, I'm not going to hold you over. Both airlines won, but they didn't win by much. If I go down to the very end here, Danielle, riding Acela, found out that Jessica and Scott had made it to the White House as she was in Union Station. So she had actually gotten off the Acela and was now on local transit. So it wasn't too much of a difference. The first airline arrived at 9:56 a.m. and the Acela Express, and I'm talking about after the local transit, looks like arrived at 10:20. So just about looks like 26 minutes or so. Yeah, about 26 minutes later than the first arrival, 24 minutes. So that's how that went away. If you look at the total travel time, the Acela Express was 4 hours and 12 minutes. The Northeast Regional was 4 hours 51 minutes. American Airlines Shuttle, 3 hours 49 minutes. Delta Shuttle, 3 hours 58 minutes. And the Megabus, 5 hours and 53 minutes. So most of them are fairly competitive. The Acela's closer to the airlines in speed than it is to the Northeast Regional, but it is slower. So now Amtrak considers that this service is going to take 2 hours and 35 minutes. And the deal with that is you could probably shave off quite a bit of time. So that is about 25 minutes faster. So the current time benchmark set in the race of 4 hours and 12 minutes would drop to about 3 hours and 47 minutes, which would beat the American Airlines Shuttle by 2 minutes. Now, do recognize that I do understand that this is the real world, which means you know, something as simple as a SEPTA train taking too long to move from one track to another can make all your difference, right? Your lift getting stuck in traffic between Central Park and LaGuardia can slow your ability to get onto the shuttle. There's a whole bunch of different situations that you can find yourself in. So basically what I'm trying to do is figure out whether or not the Acela can beat that benchmark using the faster timetable, and also see whether or not a 2 hour and 35-minute timetable is in fact feasible. So we're going to depart at 7 a.m. and I'm actually going to follow some of the story as we go along, and I'll tell you what you would be doing had you have been riding the Northeast Regional, American Airlines Shuttle, Delta Airlines Shuttle, or the Megabus, as per the story in Racing from New York City to DC by the pointsguy.com. So with that said, I'm going to set the train up for departure. The most important note of this service is this is a service that has yet to exist in the real world. It has no written schedule right now. So it's impossible for me to keep to a timetable that doesn't exist. It's extraordinarily rare that I could get the opportunity to drive a schedule from the future. So I'm going to do that now. We're going to try and make this trip as fast as we can. Once the train leaves the station at New York City, we're going to go non-stop all the way to Washington, D.C., which should hopefully shave about 25 minutes off the trip, and we're going to see whether or not that is actually the case. For the simulator, I'm using the OpenRails Pennsylvania Railroad V2, and the reason I'm using the V2 is so that I can get the correctly signed speed limits in the switches. Because there's no stops to be made, we'd better get those switches at the speed that they actually are for a seriously accurate simulation. Also, a great deal of making sure that my speed limits are correct was also put into it, because again, no stops, you have no place to check yourself. So once we're on the road, we're basically committed to following the rules until we reach Washington, D.C., track 11. Okay, so going back to the points.com article, all the co-workers met at Central Park at 6 a.m. and split shortly thereafter. So they were already on their way. Danielle, who rode the Acela, arrived at Penn Station at 6:20 a.m. and now this is 7 o'clock, which is our departure time. Okay, even though this is a little bit incorrect, I'm actually stopping the bell so I can talk a little bit about what's going on before I have to focus. Okay, so our train just departed. If you were riding the 705 Northeast Regional, you would be sitting in the boarding area waiting to board. If you were riding the American Airlines shuttle, you would most likely be stopping for breakfast. That's what Jessica was doing in the article. Let's see, Scott, riding the American shuttle, was spending time in the lounge. And the Megabus man, I think that was Brandon, I think was eating lamb, trying to show off by taking the best meal, even though he would arrive a lot later. Okay, so the next update is at 7:30, and I'm now concentrating on my speed limits. I'm going to be a lot more conservative than I normally am with the speed limits, and the reason that is because I'm trying to accurately maintain a realistic timetable. Because of course there are two goals. Goal one is to see whether or not the Acela can hit a benchmark time from an early morning flight, as well as ascertain whether or not the 2 minute and 2 hour and 35 minute journey is realistic. Some notes to keep in mind. When I talk about the flight's progress, it's going to be slow, but let me tell you, those planes, once they get off the ground, and I know this from aviation and a lot of my spaceflight videos, once you're off the ground in a plane, there's no doubt who's the fastest. Those planes are averaging about 350 miles an hour. They're above 265 miles per hour at all times, starting about 3 minutes after takeoff and continuing to about 5 minutes before touchdown. Let me repeat that. They're above 265 miles per hour at all times. So the deal with the planes is it takes a long time to get to the airport, a long time to board, a long time to deboard, and a long time to make your way to your final destination. But once that plane takes off, you make your move quick. As for the Northeast Regional, it's just a slower version of ourself, pretty much. And the Megabus is a slower version of the Northeast Regional. I'm also going to be following all signals that I receive because we're going for a fully realistic timetable, and I've set the path up as realistic as I possibly can using the simulator. So all of the signals that we encounter should be very real life. That's Interstate 95, so if you're taking like a Bolt bus or a Megabus, it would be using that route. For anyone that doesn't normally watch my videos, the speed limits are set for the way they were in the 1950s. That's going to be a little bit different than how they are today, especially around the high areas. Okay, over to our left now are lines from Hoboken, including the Port Authority Trans-Hudson, which some people probably would use if they were taking a shuttle out of Newark. Newark Liberty International Airport. You could, well, you couldn't get all the way to the airport because path service does terminate at Penn Station, Newark. Okay, here we are, Newark, no stop. And this is where we're going to start diverging from the real Acela Express, which is scheduled to depart this station at 07:15. I pressed the wrong button. Oh, man. So we're going to say that that didn't happen. And the only reason I say that is because I tried to press a key to look behind the train. There's no buttons to look behind a train, only a window that you have to open up. And if the engineer can't tell the difference between a window and a train, then there's a serious problem. Window and a train brake, that would be a real big issue. As a matter of fact, I'm going to reposition my keyboard. I had it underneath my desk, as I normally do, but I'm actually going to pull it back away from the desk now because I do really want to see the controls that I'm operating. And for the sake of the train driver. Alright, so the Newark Liberty International Airport station would be right about where we are now. Again, 1950s simulation, but as far as the distance is, we're using the right train for the job. Everything is the same. Matter of fact, the whooshes that you were just hearing were actually the best simulation they could do for airplanes taking off from Newark Liberty. That's interesting. We had just a touch of British Rail there. It's an old Microsoft Train Simulator joke, which I just kind of invented. Okay, we're getting fairly close, time-wise, to our next would-be stop, which is canceled, and that's going to be Metro Park at 7:28. So at Newark, we were 3 minutes ahead of schedule, well, not schedule, 3 minutes ahead of baseline, we'll call it, because the train 2107 is not our schedule. Our schedule is undefined. We're setting it. Some aspects of the simulation unfortunately won't be simulated. Like I said earlier, that slow SEPTA train or New Jersey Transit train or MARC train, it could happen anywhere. We can't simulate that, so you might actually have to add, and I wouldn't be surprised if we came in about 5 minutes early for that reason. Normally, Amtrak likes to buffer their schedules up so that they don't get caught in a pinch. Okay, so here it is. This would have been Metro Park. We'll say it's 7:21, and we would have been due here at 7:28. So we're now 7 minutes ahead of schedule. Save 7 minutes and counting. I'd be interested to see if we actually get that 110 that's showing up on the route monitor. Probably going to show up as 100, even though it's right. Making really good time. We left New York 23.5 minutes ago and we've come 30 miles. Approaching New Brunswick. We are about to fly after this. So it looks like next would-be stop is going to be Philadelphia. Okay, once we reach our max line speed, we're at Monmouth Junction. We're going to be at Princeton Junction pretty soon. That'll be a good place for me to give you a status update on where you'd be if you were taking another mode of transportation. I like airplanes too, both flying them as well as riding in them. I don't like buses. Okay, let's see. Planes, trains, and buses. So 7:30 a.m. We're basically riding at 135 miles an hour through Princeton Junction. If you were on the Northeast Regional, you would have boarded the train and been on your way. They don't give a location for this. If you were riding the American Shuttle, it looks like you would be trying to go through TSA. If you had TSA pre-check, this guy did. Scott had TSA pre-check, so he cleared security at 7:30, right as boarding was starting for the shuttle flight. So he's cutting it pretty much as close as you can. This is without the 2-hour ahead wait that they say you should do. Okay, so we had one guy just clear security at an airport, and we have a Delta shuttle that is boarding in a Breyer 170 right now. The bus is also on the road, the Megabus, and they are near Newark, having cleared without really any traffic. So that's where everyone was at this point in time. Next status update is at 8 o'clock. So far, geographically, we're in the lead. I can't believe way back in the day that they actually had crossings, level crossings, on this state of track. It's incredible. Sometimes I wonder what I'm not going to be able to get away with in this country in 50 years. Next thing they'll say is driving trains is too close to or rather having the opportunity to pretend to drive trains gives you too much knowledge. Ooh, you're not allowed to have that. That is interesting. Also good time for this. Since we're not stopping, I can't save like I normally do. Okay, we're now racing through Trenton. We'll be leaving New Jersey probably within about 60 seconds. Okay, don't worry, in real life, this interlocking is not this sharp. That would have probably caused a derailment if that were as realistic as it appears in Train Simulator. There's one more interlocking, bell interlocking, that is a little bit messy too. But again, don't worry, the curve is actually more like what you just experienced back there. Simulations aren't 100% accurate, which is unfortunate. Also, now we are in Pennsylvania, only 37 minutes after leaving New York City. Which is almost unreal. I mean, we've traveled 62 miles in 38 minutes. There ain't no bus in this world that can catch us doing that kind of speed. Except an Airbus. That's kind of a funky name. That would have been funny too if there actually was a simulated, ouch, if there was a simulated aircraft there. train control here is pretty low maintenance here in southeastern Pennsylvania. When we get a little bit closer to Philadelphia, it's going to get real crazy. For now on the north side, though, things are pretty quiet until we get down to, I think it's Croydon. Shortly after that, then we hit Frankfurt Junction. Speak of the devil. Maybe it's a little bit further than that. Why do I have a red signal? Okay, that was weird. I don't know what that was about. I noticed that my cab signal had just turned red for some strange reason. And I'm pretty sure that if that happens while the train is in motion, not only will the emergency brakes kick on, but the engineer better recognize that and stop. Cornwall Heights, that's what I'm thinking of. Look that up later in Tacony. Interesting. I think we just crossed the Schuylkill River Bridge as well. Okay, alright, the mileposts are signaled a different way. I forgot about that they changed. They got rid of mileposts 12 through 0, which is realistic. That's how they do it in real life. What this means is it is not following my mileposts here. So the scary thing with that is my speed limits now are asynchronous and incorrect. So hopefully things stay okay. I think we've been alright so far. And what a moment too, right? Frankfurt Junction. This is where a derailment occurred because they lost track of where they were. And that's kind of the situation that I'm in right now. But yes, I do recognize. Whoa! I can't tell if that was a 1-under or not. That was not good. It was a pure stroke of luck that I happened to remember where I was. Or that would have been very unrealistic, as in would have ended in disaster. Cool, so I seriously dodged a bullet there. Scenery. Okay, it's just a really steep hill. about to have a pretty big fight with some old infrastructure. By that I mean we're going to get slowed down a lot. And while we're stuck in that mess, that's probably when the aircraft are going to be taken off. Okay. Approach limited, it looks. So I'm going to begin reducing the train for 45 miles an hour at the next signal. And let's just make sure that that is a limited clear. Actually, that looks like a medium. Yeah, that's a... Actually, no, that's an approach medium. So now we're talking 30 miles an hour. Now we've got a limited clear. So we're 45 after all. Speed limit change coming up here. And another limited clear, which shouldn't affect us because our track speed is already too slow for that to even affect us. Listen hard, you can hear the zoo animals. That's why they call this zoo interlocking. Although, as you can probably tell, it's a zoo too. Advanced approach, expect to find the next signal displaying approach. Trains exceeding 30 miles per hour must begin reducing speed to 30 miles per hour. Okay, now we've got limited clear, which would normally be 45 miles per hour, but we're coming into Philadelphia. I don't know how to interpret that red signal. It's displaying stop, but we've got a 30. What am I supposed to do about that? Unless it's trying to tell me restricting, which may very well be possible. Yeah, that's restricting. Okay, so here we are, Philadelphia, no stop. So we were in Penn Station, New York City, 56 minutes ago. Now we are in Philadelphia. I believe the Amtrak president said that we are, the new Acela route is capable of getting you to Philadelphia in the time it takes you to board your flight. So let's read some more of the Points Guy news story, racing New York City to DC. So, 8 a.m. We are the Acela Express. If you were the Northeast Regional, you could work on a cell phone. The Wi-Fi network did not work for him, unfortunately. And he wasn't able to work on his phone either, so he decided to sleep. The American Shuttle, the door closed a few minutes early. Some alleyway congestion has cleared. The jet started the slow taxi. Yeah, I think that's correct. I might be reading it wrong. Okay, so anyway, we are clear again. Delta Shuttle also in taxi. Megabus man Brendan is apparently really comfortable, but they're not telling you where he is. And that's for a good reason. Okay, so that was the 8 o'clock status update. Next update is going to be the 8:30. Interesting how they took away the high-level PRR catenary poles. Generally inside a city you get these shorter ones, as you do in New York and Washington, and Baltimore for that matter. So let's see, once we clear Phil Interlocking, we'll get the taller catenary posts with the 138 kilovolt lines back. So yeah, to reaffirm what I said earlier, the plane had boarded and started taxiing. So you know what? I have to agree with him. I think that the Acela is capable of getting you to Philadelphia in the time it takes you to board your flight. Did I just pass a milepost 20? I did. That should have said 7. I think we passed through Philadelphia at 7:58, and the schedule was to have us there at 8:17, which means we are now 18 minutes ahead. It sounds about right where we should be. Maybe we're a little bit ahead of schedule. But yeah, I think it's close enough. Okay, in the next mile, we're going to be transitioning from Pennsylvania to Delaware. And there is Interstate 95. Of course, no sign of any Bolt bus that left the same time we did. Okay, so this is the other place that I said was, you know, looked insane, but in real life it's not as bad. That's where we are now. Okay, so we've got an approach medium. Changed to a signal speed of 80, so I think that means 80 mile per hour crossover. However, the speed limit's going down, so that's not going to help us. Downtown Wilmington. Wilmington, again, no stops. So if this were the normal Acela, we would be due here at 41, meaning we are 29 minutes ahead of schedule. Yeah, we're definitely starting to get way ahead. The weird thing is, though, I can't tell you what's causing that, because I'm following all the speed limits as they're defined. It could be train traffic. It could just be that there's no way to travel quite as fast as we're going. Just the amount of slower trains typically in front of you. Okay, we'll have one more opportunity to check our progress before we go into Washington, D.C. And that will be at Baltimore. Now, at some point pretty soon, we're going to have to switch tracks to the number 1 because the track that we're currently on goes to the left, which is a northbound priority track. So at some point, we should expect a reduced signal indication. And that will probably start happening about the time that we start coming into Newark, Delaware. Okay, we've got a approach limited. I have a feeling though that this one is for 70. Not always clear how to interpret these unless you have the route monitor open, but if I understand that right, that should be telling me that my signal speed is 70 miles per hour. If it's not, then we've got a serious problem. Realistically, high-speed track change. I like it. And we are clear of the interlocking. crossing from Delaware into Maryland. Okay, and here's where we lose the third track. I'm nearly certain that the area that we are traveling through right here is the least densely populated area between New York City and Washington, D.C. On the entire Northeast Corridor, it is only slightly beat out by eastern Connecticut and southwestern Rhode Island between Kingston and New London. That's the only other area on the Northeast Corridor all the way to Boston that is least densely populated than the area that we're in now. And hence the two tracks, which we really haven't encountered anywhere else except in tunnels and on bridges so far. Okay, let's get our 8:30 update on the story. Looks like the Northeast Regional train made it to Philadelphia. Okay, American Airlines shuttle is in the air by 8:28. One plane in the air. And the Delta shuttle took off at 8:24. Two planes in the air. So that was just about 5 minutes ago, which means they would be heading my direction at 265 miles an hour. And meanwhile, I need to slow to 90 miles an hour to cross a 110-year-old bridge. A bridge that was built about the same time the Wright brothers flew their airplane for the first time. But let's not forget about the Megabus. Still napping. They don't give any updates on where this guy is. Of course, folks, that's all considering that you left New York at 6 a.m., at least Central Park. So we're about 2.5 hours in already. Okay, next update at 9 o'clock. Also, we're now less than 55 minutes from the airplane's landing. That's all it takes them from wheels up at LaGuardia to wheels down at National. Takes roughly 54 to 55 minutes flying IFR. So this is going to happen, like I said, really fast. Planes in the air, it's going to get in front of us really quickly. And then we'll be playing catch up. I'd be lucky as if I were going half as fast as an aircraft right now. So I think there was some fella who did a documentary on the Acela Express. I forgot his name, but I think he calls it like the U.S.'s most awesome trains or something like that. And he talks about how when he was in final approach to, I think it was Boston, he saw an Acela train. And it was in a racing situation with a plane. And he said that the plane was beating it, but it wasn't beating him by that much. So, and I'd imagine, you know, that has to look pretty impressive. You know, you're in a plane coming in for like final approach or something. Everything is whooshing under you. And then all of a sudden, here's this train that just manages to stay in your field of view for like 30 straight seconds. That's pretty impressive. Two to the horn to anybody who's at Aberdeen Station. So we have the potential to be slowed down by commuter trains in every part of our journey except that part that I said was the least densely populated area between New York and Washington, D.C. There's no surprise for that. That is a break between Newark, Delaware, and Perryville, Maryland, which we just picked up the MARC system as soon as we crossed over, actually just before we crossed the Susquehanna River. Back when I was saying I am braking for a bridge that's 110 years old. Okay, my track ends. I'm gonna have to slow down for another change, and it looks like this is another 70, which is making me really happy right now. You know, finally these things are realistic. So Amtrak right now says that we should be about 59 minutes away from Washington, D.C. And I have to say, that sounds about right. If you subtract a stop at Baltimore, I think that's about right. Crossing the Bush River. There's nothing like standing next to an Acela train when it's doing 125 miles an hour. If they ever do what they do in Japan and actually cordon off the platforms until your train actually arrives, I will feel so bad for the people that never had the misfortune of looking for a local commuter train to stop, and then all of a sudden you hear a very Doppler shifted Acela horn just a couple feet behind you, and then all of a sudden you feel this very strong suction force drawing you towards the train. Very scary at the time, but in all a good memory. Gunpowder River. Got another track change to make before Baltimore. I'm curious to know what this one's going to look like. Try and point out I-95 the next time we come up to it. I think the last time we saw it would have been going southbound out of Wilmington. I-95 would have been on the left. I was hoping that was going to be a platform shot. Like I might have picked an 80 this time. That's really good for speed. Like I said, this is the reason I went with the version 2. If I had to do the other PRR, I'd be given 45s and 35s, which are to some degree not realistic, but they're also really slow. They don't make for an accurate simulation. Like it. Nice. 80s are great. They are really great. Okay, this is I-95 right here, coming into Baltimore. You could have used 495 as an alternate, and this is 895, which you can also use as an alternate to 95 in Baltimore. That's pretty cool. It looks like right here we're going to be switching tracks, but the track speed limit is, well, the switch limit is 70, but the track limit is 60. So as it turns out, we basically maintain a clear signal the whole way through. Alright, now we've got an advanced approach getting close to Baltimore now. And here we are at Baltimore Penn Station, about an hour and 52 minutes after we left New York City. Still making good time. Don't like the unrealistic tunnel sounds where we are now. Okay, so schedule-wise, if this was train 2107, we'd be departing Baltimore at, looks like 9:24 a.m., which makes us 29 minutes early. So I'd say that's a little bit faster than we probably would be if you added in some traffic. But I have to say, I think that's still pretty close to where we would be. And Amtrak usually pads their schedules with about 5 minutes at the end, because sometimes Washington and New York, for that matter, don't have tracks currently available for the trains. idea what Train Simulator was going for when they created that urban noise. To me, it sounds a lot like what a rim would if it were just towed behind a regular old car or a pickup truck scraping behind. That one didn't sound too bad. But one of those just, it literally sounds like you're just dragging like a rim or something. It's like metal on asphalt contact sound or something. Okay, one last push to Washington. So let's take a look at our friends from New York. So apparently the guy on the Northeast Regional train, Zach, woke up in Philadelphia. That's pretty cool. American Airlines shuttle. Whoops. Over accelerated, or did I? No, I'm okay. I keep forgetting to mention this, but in modern times, Halethorpe actually does have a pedestrian bridge. Okay, American Airlines shuttle. If you left Central Park at 6 a.m., it would have apparently been a bumpy flight, as happened to them. The Embraer E190 hovered just above the clouds. The Wi-Fi was slow, and no drinks were served given the turbulence. Oh no. Okay, so next we have the Delta shuttle. Jessica's flight reached cruising altitude, and shortly thereafter, flight attendants began serving the first-class drink service. Ooh. She ordered a Bloody Mary and felt a brief pang of guilt for her co-workers on trains and buses. Maybe on May 9th, but let's see what this new Acela trip can do. Don't feel guilty. I might arrive at Union Station before you land. Again, folks, this is real world, so when you do these things in real life, you have to understand that there is the potential for issues here or there. It's not a single schedule. It's not a magical single schedule. And if you want to see that in action, look up Geoff Marshall's video on visiting all, I forget what the number it is, but all tube stations in record time, and look that up. So they have to plan out the specific route that they want to do, and they have to trust that those trains are going to be precisely on time, or their whole schedule gets out of whack. And in reality, they did not set the world record for time visiting all the tube stations because there was an issue with one of the trains and it threw their schedule off. So that's what happens. So just because this Acela service might be able to beat out a single example, a single slow, not picking on Norfolk Southern freight train could jam the entire works and could have downstream cascading effects that would not necessarily make the Acela the fastest way to get from Central Park to the White House. I'm glad they got rid of the middle poles, which aren't here anymore. So now, if I stick my head out the window like this and count the catenary poles going by, Yep. Just exactly like that means 125 miles an hour. You folks that ride the Northeast, excuse me, you folks that ride the Northeast Corridor often know exactly what I'm talking about. We're now 90% of the way to our final destination. 22 miles remain. Ah, yes, these last few tense miles. We're about to begin the slowdown sequence for Washington Union Station. That'll begin with a slight reduction, followed a few miles later by greater reductions. Alright, folks, look alive. Okay, I think this switch is an 80 by the looks of things. Track monitor didn't change at all through that. There's no way that would have been 100 though. Not with how sharp that seemed. Leaving Maryland, entering District of Columbia. Oh, that's annoying. The unrealistic B&O catenary is back. We're going to have to remove it in order to be realistic. Okay, this is it. Just a few more minutes and then we'll be alighting our passengers. And the first thing I'm going to do, we won't be done when we make a full stop. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch my time in that I got, and then we'll go back to the story, see what everyone is doing, and then ascertain the time that Danielle would have made it to the White House had she used this not yet even brand new service, this future service. That business end class car is backwards. I should fix that. Yeah, now that's when you're supposed to see a stop signal. Probably a misaligned switch of some kind. Okay, doors are open. Doors are open at 09:22. Okay, so there's two numbers I'm going to write down. 9:22 a.m. and the more realistic with 5 minutes buffer due to traffic, 9:27 a.m. So I get the most realistic time, factoring in what I know with Amtrak traffic, to be 2 hours and 27 minutes. That is the most likely time that my simulation finds that you are doors closed at Penn Station, New York, to doors open, Washington, D.C. So, okay, pretending that it's 9:30 now, let's read where everyone is. So I have now dropped off my passengers at D.C. The Northeast Regional with Zach is somewhere eating a microwave bagel. Well, he was a 7:05, so I can actually look up his schedule. It is we'll say it's 9:27. So he's somewhere between Wilmington and Baltimore. He's in that two-track section, quite a ways behind us, actually. Okay, the American shuttle. The 54 minutes in the air were uneventful, but not the most productive. Scott had very little time to have his laptop out, and sending and receiving the shortest email was painfully slow. The Delta shuttle. The flight crew announced that due to technical difficulties, the onboard Wi-Fi would not be functioning, which meant that Jessica wasn't getting any work done on her flight. Time to order another Bloody Mary. Megabus. Brandon tried out the Wi-Fi. Speeds were so slow it was practically useless. And there's a very sad picture of him in the Megabus. So the normal Acela would have pulled into Baltimore Penn Station at 9:25. As for the Northeast Regional, there it is, a few miles from Baltimore. Yep, that's exactly where I thought it would be. By this time, Zach conceded the race, though, as he had received word that Jessica and Scott had just touched down at DCA. Okay, the American shuttle touched down at 9:22 a.m. Just a few minutes behind the Delta shuttle. Wow. A quick taxi to Gate 23, and Scott was in the terminal by 9:28 a.m. And I arrived at Union Station at 9:27 a.m. So the American shuttle and Acela Express basically met at their ends to transfer their passengers. Okay. While the tail end of the rainy rush hour traffic jams some of Washington streets, oh yeah, that's always going to happen. Scott chose public transit for the last segment of his journey to the White House. Just 4 minutes after leaving the plane, he was on the metro platform. So that means he was on the metro platform and on board a Blue Line train by 9:32 a.m. That's totally fine. With plans to sprint, okay, walk really fast from the Farragut West station to the White House. Sounds good. Jessica's flight landed at DCA at 9:15 a.m., making her the first of the crew to arrive in DC. Well, that actually beats my time. So the Delta shuttle actually got them to DC first. After a brief wait for a gate assignment, the plane pulled into the gate and Jessica deplaned triumphantly. She tried to call a lift, but after much confusion couldn't find her driver at the designated car services pickup spot. She decided to ditch the car apps and wait in the taxi line, even though it was long. She felt her lead in the race, slipping through her fingers. Okay, Megabus. Brandon was now about halfway through his journey, snapping a pic from the interstate in Port Deposit, Maryland. Okay, so that's where I'm referencing this again. That's where Perryville is, where I was also referencing the fact that I was slowing down for a 110-year-old bridge. That's where the Megabus is right now. Okay, so I need to do a little bit of math right now. So the American shuttle was in the terminal by 9:28 a.m. The Delta shuttle was in the terminal. Well, it actually doesn't say. It says they landed. So let's use the touchdown time instead. So touchdown for American Airlines was 9:22 a.m. The Delta shuttle touchdown was at 9:15 a.m. So then what I'm going to do now is take a note here. The 19-minute for American shuttle, the 19-minute metro ride had no hiccups, and Scott sped into the lead. A quick walk around the corner, and at 9:56 a.m., less than 4 hours after leaving Central Park, Scott was snapping a selfie in front of the White House. Okay, so let's see if I can do that math real quick. Looks like 34 minutes after landing, he made it to the White House. Now, for the Delta shuttle, Jessica finally got in a cab and headed towards the White House. According to Google Maps, the drive should have taken 20 minutes. At 10:06 a.m., Jessica finally arrived at the White House and snapped her second-place selfie. Okay, so the next one we have is 10:06 a.m. That is just over 50 minutes. That's 51 minutes. Okay. And that's from their landing time. Let's see how long it took Danielle. Okay, so she got into her Uber at 10:03 a.m. from the old Acela Express, and says she jumped out of the Uber at 10:17 and strolled over to the White House. She clocked in at 10:20 a.m., giving her third place in the race. So 10:03 a.m. Out of the Uber at 10:20 for 17 minutes. So had she taken this futuristic train trip, which is going to go on sale, well, it's already on sale, but going to actually happen for real in September, she would have come off the train at about 9:27, and I'm going to do the calculation for what Amtrak says just in case. So we'll use 9:27 and 9:35 with the 17 minutes. She would have made it to the White House at 9:44. And if she used the time that, or it took her the time that Amtrak is giving us, that would have been 9:52 a.m. So guess what? In this case, based on my test, in this scenario, a person, for example, Danielle, in this racing from New York City to DC story, would have arrived first about 12 minutes before 12 minutes before Zach, and even more before Jessica. If we use the Amtrak time of 9:35 a.m., she would have still beat Scott by 4 minutes. So there you go. This is just one example. Like I said, there are plenty of things that could have happened. It could have been that we really had a one under where I was complaining about that guy walking across the tracks somewhere in New Jersey. That would have ended the trip there, and we certainly wouldn't have made it first. Likewise, there could be a nor'easter and a huge cascading effect of airlines that completely shuts them down, and then the train is your only option. So basically, I think what this does is changes the Acela from an ideal from an ideal situation losing by 24 minutes to an ideal situation winning by between 4 and 12 minutes. So does it really make a difference time-wise? Maybe if you're a politician or a businessman or businesswoman, but from a casual tourist perspective, I mean, they had horrible Wi-Fi. One of the flights couldn't even serve drinks due to turbulence. So that kind of gives you an idea of what you're dealing with. It's really the type of journey that you want. If you want a first-class journey for a business class price, you're probably going to want to go with the Acela Express. If you're looking to get there as fast as possible, when the new Acela Express comes online, you could do either the Acela Express or the American and Delta shuttle and be roughly on time, although the Acela appears to have a slight bias to win. The Northeast Regional is going to get you there later, and the Megabus is going to get you there really later. So the Megabus is your cheap option. If you want a cheap way to get from DC to New York and back, that's your option. If you want a thing that's basically like the airline, but you don't necessarily want to fly, maybe you want bigger seats, Northeast Regional could be good for you. So I have Zach arrived at Union Station at 10:33 a.m., hopped onto the red Metro line, and walked the last few minutes to the White House, where he arrived in 4th place at 10:59. So that would have been, looks like 39 minutes after Danielle in the Acela Express. Megabus. Brendan broke out an old amenity kit from when he had flown TAP Portugal business class a few months ago, hoping to elevate his experience. That's funny. Okay, now 11 a.m. onwards, Brendan discovered Megabus's surprisingly robust in-bus entertainment, which streamed 24 movies and TV shows straight to his phone in HD quality. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. At 11:32 a.m., the Megabus pulled into Washington, D.C.'s Union Station. Okay. Wanting to at least win on the fun factor, he took a brisk 10-minute walk to find a dockless Lime scooter. After a 13-minute scooter ride covering a mile and a half that cost $2.95, he parked his scooter a block from the White House. 6 hours. Wow. After departing Central Park with $27 less in his wallet, he snapped a selfie in front of the White House at 11:59 a.m. Wow. Yeah, that's 6 hours. Okay. So if I look at the pros and cons chart here, it looks like the fastest option is going to get stolen by the train. But the free lounge breakfast will obviously stay with the plane. The plane keeps its cons, hard to be productive, possible air traffic delays. And the train keeps its con, can get expensive, especially the Acela. Okay, go to cost, time, and breakdown. So time from Central Park to White House for us on this train would have been, at worst, 3 hours 45 minutes for the special Acela, 4 hours 51 minutes for the Northeast Regional, 3 hours 49 minutes, so that's just 4 minutes longer for the American Shuttle, and 3 hours 58 minutes, that is, looks like 13 minutes longer for the Delta Shuttle, and the Megabus clocking in at 5 hours and 53 minutes, a full 2 hours behind the Acela. So we spent about just under 2.5 hours in motion. Northeast Regional spent 4 hours 51 minutes. Hang on a second. 3 hours 28 minutes. There we go, in motion. The American Shuttle, 54 minutes, wheels up to wheels down. Delta Shuttle, 51 minutes, wheels up to wheels down. Megabus, 4 hours and 20 minutes on the road. Cost across the board, Acela 309, Northeast Regional 96, American Shuttle 169, Delta Shuttle 240, but using enough points it was really worth 480. Megabus was $21. So, it looks like the Acela is actually the most expensive transportation cost per minute, which is actually kind of funny. So, there you go. One of the most expensive ways to get from DC to New York, but I do think that this will make travel slightly more competitive with the airlines, even though it already is competitive enough to take more than half of the total traffic anywhere, any transportation option between New York and Washington, D.C. So with that, I would like to say perhaps it would be a wise idea to add Philadelphia as a stop, because it only really adds you 4 minutes and still ties you with the American Shuttle, while also providing excellent Wi-Fi service and wine and cheese treatment. So yay. So I think we'll leave it with that. In all, it basically comes out to what you want out of the trip, right? If you don't want to fly, but you don't like megabuses, then the Northeast Regional might be the best fit for you. If you want to be fast and you want to be cheap, then maybe the airplanes are your best option. If you want to stay fast, but then pay top dollar for special treatment, or in the best case scenario, get there absolutely first, then the direct Acela Express might be the option for you. So that's what it comes down to. I've assessed that no option is clearly the winner here. There are certainly ones that are better than others. Like, for example, if you want to be super cheap about it, then you can do the Megabus. But that has absolutely no competition. The speed competition is really between the Acela and the air. It will be between the Acela and the airlines, Acela Direct and the airlines, with Northeast Regional being a slightly slower option. This has been Dr. Aeronautics, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.